Welcome to today's deep dive.
So glad to be here for this one.
Yeah, if you are someone who, loves gaining knowledge and exploring multiple perspectives,
And examining those hidden cultural forces.
exactly, the ones that shape our modern world, if that's you, then you are in for a really fascinating, highly provocative exploration today.
Oh, absolutely. It is a wild ride.
It really is. We were looking at an ebook titled Get and Keep a Man.
A long-term relationship perspective.
Right. It's written by someone who goes by the name Coach Bruyns. And I actually want to start by painting a picture for you, the listener.
The cover art.
The cover art, yes. Because the cover of this book really just sets the scene for everything we are about to discuss today.
It tells you exactly what you're in for.
Right. So it features this image of a woman. She's in a classic, elaborate, bright white wedding dress.
Very traditional.
Very. And she is gazing thoughtfully out of this large, sunlit window.
Which perfectly encapsulates the traditional end goal that this entire text is driving toward.
Exactly. I mean, this is not a guide about finding yourself.
No.
Or navigating the casual dating scene, right? It is a highly specific roadmap designed for one single destination.
Securing a husband.
Securing a husband. But look, before we get into the weeds of those assumptions, we really need to state something very clearly to you up front.
Yes, the disclaimer.
Right. This source material contains highly polarizing, deeply traditional, and honestly, potentially politically charged views on gender roles, feminism, and relationships.
Extremely polarizing.
So, as your guides on this deep dive, neither of us is taking a side here.
We're not endorsing these viewpoints at all.
No, not at all. Our mission today is critical impartiality. We are just here to convey and analyze the ideas exactly as they are presented in the text.
So that you can understand the author's underlying philosophy.
Right, and the broader cultural counter-movements that it represents. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Looking at my notes here, to even begin to grasp the arguments in this book, we really need to understand the author's background. Like, what is the lens he is looking through?
That is the perfect starting point, honestly. So Coach Bruyns is a South African writer and blogger.
Okay.
Professionally, he's actually a university lecturer who specializes in English as a foreign language.
Interesting.
Right. But his academic background, his actual degree, is in religion studies.
Ah, okay. That makes a lot of sense, given the content.
It does. He writes extensively about masculinity and relationship dynamics. And to give you a sense of just how traditional his worldview is, his other published works include practical guides to polygyny.
Wait, I want to just pause there and clarify for the listener, because those terms can get a little confusing.
Sure.
Polygyny specifically refers to a man having multiple wives, correct?
Yes.
As opposed to polygamy,
Yeah.
which is just the general term for multiple spouses of any gender.
But that is a crucial distinction, yeah. Polygyny is specifically one husband with multiple wives. And the fact that he writes practical guides on how to manage that kind of household, detailing the pros and cons, it gives us a massive clue about his overarching philosophy.
Right, it's not a standard Western view.
Not at all.
Right.
He approaches relationships from a distinctly non-Western, highly traditional, patriarchal framework.
Okay.
His core premise in Get and Keep a Man is that Western feminism has fundamentally failed women.
Failed them how, exactly?
Well, according to his framework, modern cultural messaging has taught women to focus entirely on themselves.
Like leaning into their careers and independence.
Exactly. And he argues that this focus reduces relationships to valueless, instant gratification encounters.
Wow.
Yeah. In his view, this modern setup leaves both men and women profoundly unfulfilled. He basically says they are destined to die alone.
That is a bleak assessment. But to illustrate this tragedy of modern dating, the book doesn't just rely on theory, does it?
No, it has a whole narrative running through it.
Right. The author weaves this fictional narrative throughout the chapters using a character named Linda. And I want to spend some time on Linda because her story is basically the emotional anchor of the book.
She is the cautionary tale.
The ultimate cautionary tale. So Linda is a highly successful news anchor. She lives in this gorgeous upmarket apartment in Cape Town.
On paper, she is the ultimate modern success story.
Exactly. But the text constantly shows her, like, looking into her mirror, asking her reflection, who am I?
Right.
While she's actively trying to convince herself that she is this independent goddess who doesn't need a man.
But the reality is...
Fundamentally, she is deeply miserable and lonely.
Yeah.
And the author uses her interactions with 3 specific men to highlight everything he believes modern women are doing wrong. Well, let's start with the first guy, Randall. He's her coworker.
The dynamic with Randall is fascinating because it sets up the author's view on what he calls the marriage market.
Right, so they hook up.
Right. Linda and Randall sleep together after a night of drinking, and afterward, Linda tries to play it cool.
As you do in modern dating.
Exactly. She tries to assert her independence and act like it was just a casual hookup. She assumes that will make her seem low maintenance and attractive to him.
But it backfires.
Spectacularly. Randall completely loses interest. He eventually gets engaged to a new intern at the office named Laura.
And Linda's not happy about that.
No, she bitterly describes Laura as homely and inexperienced.
So what's the author's underlying message there?
The message he's pushing is that a man who has options, a successful man like Randall, he will actively bypass the independent modern woman in favor of a traditional inexperienced woman when it comes to a serious commitment.
Wow. Okay, so then we have the second man in Linda's life, Devin. Devin is Linda's longtime friend, but he is married.
Yes, to Anastasia.
Right, to a very domesticated, loving Greek woman named Anastasia. The book details how Devin basically uses Linda for sex when it's convenient for him.
Like when he's feeling stressed from work.
Or just wants an escape from his life. But what really stands out to me here is that the author makes it explicitly clear that Devin will never ever leave his wife for Linda.
Never. Because in the author's worldview, Anastasia provides the foundational comfort and stability that Devin requires for his life.
Well, Linda is just out.
Linda merely provides a fleeting distraction. She's a convenience.
Oh.
Book uses Devin to warn women that being the cool, casual girl might get a man's attention, sure, but it will never secure his long-term loyalty. Men compartmentalize these roles.
Which brings us to the third man, Maurice. Maurice is a bouncer at a club.
This is where it gets really intense.
Yeah, because Maurice is the man who took Linda's virginity when she was just 16 years old. And years later, he still sporadically sleeps with her.
But he treats her terribly.
He has zero respect for her. He repeatedly abandons her, yet Linda is always drawn back to him. He represents her ultimate unresolved attachment.
And the character of Maurice is where the author transitions from behavioral critique into his theories on evolutionary biology and psychology. The Bruyns uses Linda's profound unhappiness, and specifically this unbreakable tie to Maurice, to argue that men and women view relationships in fundamentally different ways.
Okay, unpack that.
The premise here is that men are seeking a very specific intrinsic value in a long-term partner. And he argues that the modern dating scene, with its focus on casual encounters and serial monogamy, completely destroys that intrinsic value.
And looking at my notes, this definition of intrinsic value is probably the most controversial concept in the entire book.
Oh, without a doubt.
Because de Bruyns does not define a woman's value by her career success.
Or her intelligence.
Or kindness, or her personality.
Right.
He equates a woman's intrinsic value directly to her chastity.
Our virginity.
Right, and what he sees is the absolute guarantee of loyalty. He introduces this concept of the first love theory. Can you break down the mechanics of why he thinks this happens biologically?
Yeah. So the author claims that women are biologically hardwired for monogamy. According to his theory, when a woman has her first sexual encounter, she forms a permanent, unbreakable emotional pair bond with that man.
And he blames hormones for this.
He does. He argues this is tied to hormones like oxytocin and the profound emotional vulnerability of that first experience. In his view, this creates an imprint that can never truly be overwritten or replicated.
Ever.
Ever. So following his logic, every succeeding man in that woman's life only gets a fractured, diminished version of her emotional capacity.
So the first guy, in Linda's case, Maurice the bouncer.
Maurice always retains the lion's share of her pair bonding ability.
That is heavy. And the book goes on to argue that men instinctively know this on an evolutionary level.
Right.
De Bruyns writes that if a man has the choice between a virgin and a non-virgin, 9 times out of 10, he will choose the virgin.
And he specifies that this isn't just for physical reasons.
It's driven by male psychology.
Right.
He claims men possess this deep-seated fear of being compared to past lovers. They want exclusive rights to a woman's ultimate emotional vulnerability.
Exactly.
The author states that men instinctively avoid women who have had casual sex because those women have essentially short-circuited their ability to pair bond.
Meaning they will constantly be looking for outside validation rather than being content with one provider?
It creates a framework where a woman's sexual past is just this indelible mark on her future value as a partner.
It's a completely irreversible process in his eyes. Now, the text does offer what we could call a cure for women who aren't virgins or who have, in his words, slept around.
Yes, to fix their damaged pair bonding ability. The book states that if a woman with a past wants to settle down and secure a husband, she must practice strict celibacy for a period of 1 to 3 years.
Right.
The goal is to break her behavioral cycles and reset her dopamine receptors. But there's a very stark caveat attached to this advice, isn't there?
There is a massive caveat. He bluntly tells the reader that even if a woman successfully completes this years-long celibacy, she must accept a harsh reality.
Which is...
She will never equal the value of a chaste woman in the marriage market. She has to lower her expectations for the caliber of man she can attract.
I mean, if you are listening to this right now and thinking, this sounds incredibly rigid or completely opposed to everything you've been taught about finding a partner.
That is exactly the author's point.
Right. He is pushing back against the modern narrative entirely. And this rigid view of chastity transitions directly into how the author defines femininity itself.
Yes, it's a very specific definition.
Because within his framework, femininity has nothing to do with empowerment or leaning into your career. The book defines true femininity primarily by 2 specific traits: agreeableness and submissiveness.
Bruyns paints a picture of stark social and relationship hierarchies.
Okay.
He claims that women instinctively desire a man who is superior to them.
Superior in what way?
It could be social status, financial wealth, or physical capability. The core idea is that a woman wants a man she can literally and figuratively look up to.
And the men.
Conversely, he argues that men instinctively desire a woman who is inferior to them in those same metrics.
That is a massive leap to make for a lot of modern readers. How does he justify that superior and inferior dynamic as a positive thing for a relationship?
He roots it in what he views as a man's biological imperative. He argues that men are basically hardwired by evolution to be the protectors and the leaders of the pack.
So they need someone to protect.
Exactly. A man derives his sense of purpose and self-worth from that role. The author states that a man simply cannot feel like a protector or a leader with a woman who is more sophisticated, more successful, or more dominant than he is.
That actually reminds me of a line in the book that really captures this perfectly.
Oh, I think I know the one.
He writes, "A man cannot protect a woman if she doesn't duck when he says so."
Yes, that is the one.
Wow. If she doesn't duck when he says so, that leads directly into his practical advice for women on how to handle disagreements.
Right, because conflict happens in any relationship.
Of course. But his advice is absolutely do not compete with your man, do not undermine him, and whatever you do not confront him directly.
Direct confrontation is a huge no-go.
Instead, he advises women to use what he calls persuasion. He claims that because women have historically been the physically weaker sex, they have spent millions of years of human evolution harnessing the skill of manipulation and gentle persuasion.
It's all about the behind-the-scenes work.
Right. He suggests using a feminine touch to change a man's mind from behind the scenes, rather than challenging his leadership out in the open.
Think about that for a second and consider how directly this clashes with modern egalitarian relationship ideals.
Oh, it's day and night.
In most contemporary advice, a healthy partnership is about a 50-50 split. It's about equality, direct communication, sitting down at a table, and sharing power.
But Coach Bruyns is advocating for a complete reversion to a distinct hierarchy.
Yes. And he frames this not as oppressive, but as the natural biological order that leads to peace in the home. Direct confrontation, in his view, is masculine behavior.
And if a woman exhibits it,
she destroys the polarity of the relationship.
And that concept of polarity extends right into the art of seduction, too. Looking at my notes, the author makes a really interesting comparison here between Western and Eastern cultures.
He does.
He argues that Western seduction is completely lacking in mystery. It's driven by instant gratification, basically just taking clothes off as fast as possible.
No build-up.
Right. But he points to Eastern cultures as the masters of seduction, through chaste, mysterious, slow unveiling. He tells women, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Which leads to his very funny but very pointed analogy.
Yes. He says you shouldn't go all out to impress a guy in the first few months, only to end up a year later sleeping next to him in a face mask and hair rollers.
The face mask and rollers analogy is his way of saying that seduction requires maintaining an illusion and putting in an ongoing, lifelong effort.
It never stops.
Never. And this ties directly into a broader chapter on what he calls adult responsibility.
This was fascinating to me.
The author is highly critical of women who he views as glorified children in a relationship.
What makes them glorified children?
Well, his rule for a successful marriage is strict reciprocity. If a man is providing the household income and taking on the stress of the outside world, the woman must provide the household comfort.
Meaning cooking and cleaning.
Exactly. Creating a peaceful sanctuary for him to return to. If she also works outside the home, she must contribute her income to the household.
So she has to bring something real to the table.
The fundamental argument is that you cannot make demands on a partner or expect them to lead and protect if you aren't offering tangible, consistent value in return.
But here is where the advice gets incredibly complex,
Yeah.
specifically regarding the bedroom. The author explicitly brings up Sigmund Freud
Yeah.
and the concept of the Madonna whore complex. Now, for those who might not be familiar with the psychology here, what exactly is that framework?
So the Madonna whore complex is a psychological phenomenon first identified by Freud. It describes a dichotomy where a man cannot sexually desire a woman. He respects the pure maternal Madonna figure.
Right.
And he cannot respect a woman. He sexually desires the uninhibited whore figure. Historically, this complex has been used to explain why men who truly love their wives might still seek out illicit affairs.
They compartmentalize.
Exactly. They compartmentalize their emotional love and their physical lust.
And the author's solution to this is to give women a highly paradoxical rule to live by to prevent their husbands from straying.
It's quite a demand.
It is. He dictates that a wife must be perfectly chaste, modest, and respectable to the outside world. She must be the Madonna in public.
Right.
But behind closed doors, to keep her husband satisfied and stop him from seeking out other women, she must be entirely uninhibited. The author's exact phrasing is that she must be his whore in the bedroom.
It's very blunt.
Very. She must never refuse him. She must dress up, try new things, and essentially embody all the hypersexualized traits of the women he might fantasize about, while maintaining total purity in her public life.
It is an incredible psychological tightrope walk he is asking women to perform. And why does this framework exist in the book? Because traditionalists view male sexuality as a potent, almost dangerous force that needs to be managed.
And it's on the woman to manage it.
Bruyns is essentially telling women that the burden of managing that force falls entirely on them. You have to be the respectable mother of his children at the grocery store and an absolute professional in the bedroom.
And if you fail,
at either role, the framework suggests the man will naturally look elsewhere to fulfill the missing half of the dichotomy.
I can just imagine how exhausting that level of mental gymnastics would be for a person day in and day out.
Without a doubt.
And speaking of exhausting, let's look at the daily realities of running a household. Because the author has very strong warnings for housewives about emasculating their provider husbands over household chores.
Yes, the chores.
He says that nagging a successful man to sweep the floor or wash the dishes is toxic to a marriage. How does he justify the husband not lifting a finger at home?
His reasoning here is tied entirely to male status. He makes the highly controversial claim that when a prominent, successful man, someone who commands respect in the corporate world or the community, performs mundane household chores, it actually lowers his masculine status in the eyes of his own wife.
So doing the dishes makes him less attractive.
According to this book, yes. He argues that, biologically, women do not truly respect a man who does women's work.
Yeah.
Therefore, if a woman forces her husband to do chores in the name of fairness, she is actively destroying her own biological attraction to him. She is eroding the very superiority that makes her want to submit to him in the first place.
To explain this dynamic of what men want versus what women want, the author uses a really strange but vivid analogy.
The shopping center.
The shopping center.
Mm-hmm.
I want to walk you through this visual from the book because it really highlights his thesis. Imagine a husband shopping center. It's a store with 4 floors where women can go to pick out a husband. On floor 1, the sign says, "The men here are good providers." Women go in, see the good providers, but think, let's see what's upstairs.
Right. They want more.
Exactly. On floor 2, the men are good providers and they are rich. The women think, great, but what's higher up? On floor 3, the men are rich, good providers, and incredibly good looking.
A jackpot.
The jackpot. The women are thrilled, but human nature kicks in and they go up to floor 4 to see the ultimate prize.
And what's on floor 4?
Floor 4 is completely empty. It's a joke designed to show that women will keep going up the floors, never satisfied, always looking for the next upgrade until they leave with nothing.
It's a cynical joke, but it perfectly encapsulates the author's underlying message about the difference between male and female desires.
How so?
He argues that men have a very simple, practical, and finite list of needs. They want a woman who is sexy, domesticated, submissive, and supportive.
And if she is all those things?
If a woman checks those boxes, the man is content. Women, on the other hand, have lists with hundreds of contradictory items.
Right. The book details how a modern woman wants a man who is a ruthless, aggressive high flyer at work so he can provide abundant wealth and status.
But simultaneously,
She wants him to be a sensitive, present co-parent who stays home to listen to her feelings, cooks dinner, and splits the laundry.
exactly, the author concludes that women don't actually want a man.
They want God.
They want God. They want a flawless entity that embodies every single positive masculine and feminine trait simultaneously, which is humanly impossible.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway of the book for women who are seeking marriage. What is his final advice for a woman who actually manages to follow this roadmap?
Coach Bruyns advises women to fundamentally alter their expectations. He tells them to stop looking for the perfect man.
Just accept the flaws.
He wants women to realize that men are flawed, they cannot be everything all at once, and instead of focusing on what a man lacks, a woman should be deeply, profoundly grateful for the man who actually chose to commit his resources and protection to her.
Gratitude is the key.
Gratitude, rather than entitlement, is his absolute prescription for a lasting marriage.
So hearing all these strict rules, evolutionary claims, and demands, what does this all mean? If we summarize Coach Bruyns' overarching philosophy, achieving a long-term marriage requires a very specific, all-encompassing sacrifice from a woman.
A massive sacrifice.
In his view, she must offer unblemished loyalty, ideally from a place of virginity. She must completely submit to male leadership and abandon any desire to compete.
She has to master that paradoxical bedroom dynamic.
Right, being chaste in public but uninhibited in private. And above all, she must replace modern expectations with unwavering gratitude toward her provider.
It is a stark, unfiltered look into a highly specific ideological framework.
It really is.
For you listening, regardless of whether you find these views fascinating, deeply outdated, or completely alarming, examining a text like this offers incredible value. It provides an undiluted look into traditionalist relationship ideologies that are very much alive and gaining traction in certain corners of the internet today. It helps us understand the underlying arguments of the counter-movements to modern feminism.
Because you cannot fully grasp the current cultural landscape regarding gender roles if you only ever look at one side of the map.
Exactly.
And as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over on your own. Throughout this text, the author paints women as deeply flawed, bound irreversibly to their sexual pasts, inherently manipulative through persuasion, and incapable of truly wanting an equal partner without destroying their own attraction.
Yes.
But if we flip the lens for a moment, what does this rigid philosophy actually imply about the author's view of men?
That's a great question.
If a man's biological imperative requires his partner to be inferior to him socially, financially, and physically, in order for him to feel like a capable protector, does this worldview actually suggest that men are incredibly fragile? Does it imply that men lack the emotional evolution to handle a true, equal partnership, and can only sustain a loving connection if it relies on strict dominance and submission?
It's definitely something to think about.
It's a fascinating question to consider as you navigate your own understanding of relationships. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and thanks for diving deep with us.